Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Thursday. It is January 30th. It is 2020. We have 6 basketball games to talk about here on today's slate. I'm joined by my good buddy, Genie for 07. Grant, after last week's terrible schedule, we've had a really strong schedule for NBA this week.
Yeah. No, just 6-7 games every day. Nothing's ever overwhelming. It's been fantastic. It's a wonderful week, and I get to see my good friend Stevietpfl in 2 days.
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I gotta find somebody that I can ship a headband to in Nashville. But outside of that, I'm ready. I'm ready for the hanging out, watching the big game, and getting crushed on the basketball floor. I mean, crushing people on the basketball floor.
I mean, if it's me versus you, then we'll probably be the two biggest
We'll crack a
guys on the
beer
floor
and laugh at each other.
I am most certainly bringing some beer and White Claws to the game. Is that allowed?
I'm sure it is. I don't see why not. Like the whole court is ours, right?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have a pimping good time.
So they're bringing snacks and Gatorade and stuff. Why can't we bring beer?
Yeah, we are adults.
That is true. All right. 6 games to talk about here on today's slate. It's an interesting slate. There's some really strong games, and then there's some really basketball-y ugly games. We start here with Charlotte at Washington, 227.5 total here. Washington favored by 3.5 in this game. Hachimura, McRae, and Wagner are all out. Start here with Charlotte. Devontae Graham, what a mess the other night. Gonna play, not gonna play, gonna play. Gonna start, gonna try to play. What a mess. He shot 1 from 8 from the field the other night. Terrible game, Rozier. He definitely had a solid game. So if you made the switch to Rozier and loaded up on Rozier, he paid off. But he paid off late too. So what are you looking at here for Charlotte?
So yeah, I really hope that people get scared off by Graham's game the other night. He was sick. It was very clear. 1 from 8 from the field. He had 5 points, but he had 10 dimes, 0 rebounds. That's not at all like him. He's mostly a scoring guy. Rarely ever gets a double-digit assist, but he was clearly just dishing out the other night. Now he gets a matchup going up against Washington. We all know how good Washington is of a matchup. Love Graham. Still like Rozier at 7,300. Washington, I like everyone on Charlotte pretty much. Washington, we haven't seen a great game out of him at all recently. 1 for 9 for the field last game, 1 for 5 from the field the game before. But prior to that, he was putting up around or close to 30 points every single game here. He's getting 30-plus minutes almost every single game where he stays out of foul trouble. He's going to have a higher volume of shots just because of the massive amount of possessions that we're going to have against Washington. It's an easy defensive matchup. He should shoot better from the field. P.J. Washington is a guy that I don't think many people are going to go for considering how bad he's been recently, but he's going up against Washington, really like him. Zeller probably going to stay away from, even a matchup versus Washington. I know it's a good matchup, but their stats versus fives is not as great as people think because they were without a large part of the season without any of their big guys, and they have some of them back now. Monk, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out still. Bridges is still in play, though, probably going to play mid-20s minutes, maybe 30s. But I love Graham. I love Washington in the spot. I think they both crush their price tags.
Yeah, Nicholas Batum just randomly back out of the rotation there. So I feel like that's, where Malik Monk and these guys, Bridges, I think their minutes are kind of secure if Batum is not going to play. So I think that firing those guys up in large field tournaments, I have no issues with that. I like the Washington call there. He's another guy that, could increase in minutes, and he shot the ball terrible the other night. So I like the spot for Charlotte overall. I'm with you on Graham. I hope that last game kind of scares people off, but I don't mind playing Rozier either. I think this is a really strong spot for Charlotte in general. Let's go to the Washington side of this game. Bradley Beal finally got the price increase after, putting up 54 straight games. What do you like here for Washington?
I still think Beal is still in play. Obviously, getting a $1,200 or $1,100 price increase is not great. But he's played 38 minutes in 3 of the last 4. He's had over 15 4 straight. Like, he's playing the minutes. He's the Bradley Beal that we saw earlier on the season with all the minutes along with it. Any given game, he can go for 60. There's a matchup versus Charlotte. It's not bad for shooting guard, so I don't really mind him in this spot. He's on a 6-game slate. Absolutely, he's in play in GPPs. I don't know if he didn't make my cash game build, but definitely a guy that's very much in play at GPPs. Has a real shot at 60. Bertan's got his price increased to 6,200. I'm not sure if there's a ton of upside on that price tag, even if he is playing 30 to 33 minutes. He has to get hot from behind the arc. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities, but he's not a guy that I'm going to be targeting. With McRae still out, like, Troy Brown Jr. isn't the worst play in the world, but again, he's got a giant price increase to 5,600. Likely not a guy that I'm going to be going for. But Thomas Bryant, I know that he got a $1,100 price increase, but he finally got some minutes in the last game here. Got played over 30 for the first time in a while since the beginning of December. Like, he came back from injury and they've limited his minutes. It finally seems like that limits restriction might be gone. Going up against a team that is the worst team in the league versus bigs. Even at 5,200, people might be scared off by this price increase. I don't mind Bryant in this spot. I think that he's a pretty decent tournament play. I want you to tell me if you think that I'm wrong.
No, I do think he's an interesting tournament play. I just hate where the minutes came from out of nowhere the other night. But I don't want it to feel like it's chasing. That's the only thing that I'm a little concerned about.
So I feel like looking at Beal, the minutes kind of came out of nowhere. Like, they were really limiting him. We didn't know if he was going to go over 30 minutes in any given matchup. And then all of a sudden 33 and 38, and then 20 and 38, 38. Like, Bryant obviously came off of an injury and came back into the lineup, and they just really limited him. But I think that they're trying to give him minutes. It's obviously not a season they're going to go for anything, but he's still a young guy with some promise. They have no reason not to really give him minutes. I think he's probably going to, like, I don't expect 32 minutes again, but even 25 to 30 minutes against this team, I think he offers a decent amount of upside and at least some good GPP upside.
Well, the matchup is phenomenal. Like, anytime you get a big guy up against Charlotte, the matchup is fantastic. It's just, are they going to play Mahimi, 30 minutes again and, like, randomly, like, Schofield going to continue to, like, get 0 minutes? Like, I like the tournament appeal. I do. I'm with you on that. I like the tournament appeal. Troy Brown Jr., I think that, he's kind of priced where he should be, but I do think that, like, he has a really solid floor in this matchup with McRae out again. So, I'm perfectly okay with that. Ish Smith played 27 minutes the other night. Like, he's another guy that you could potentially look at here for large field tournaments at 4,600. Moving on, we got Toronto at Cleveland, 220.5 total here. Toronto favored by 10 in this game. Marc Gasol is out. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is out. Patrick McCall is questionable. And then on the Cleveland side, Knight and Zizic are still out. Let's start here with Toronto. I was really glad to open up the slate and realize that they did not mess up the pricing on Serge Ibaka. They increased his price. He's still cheap on Fanduel at 5,600, but they did increase his price over there on Draftkings.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough trying to figure out what to do with Serge here. I mean, without Gasol in the game, he's probably going to end up playing around 30 minutes. There is some upside. We've obviously seen him from him before, playing 30 minutes, getting 40-plus points. It's not the worst idea in the world, but it's strictly a guy that I'm looking at in tournaments. It's kind of the same thing with everyone else. Like Siakam, any given matchup has massive upside. Match versus Cleveland. Obviously, they're terrible defensively. He has the ability to go for 60 in any given spot. Gasol being out really doesn't help his usage much, but it's not a hindrance to it. Van Vliet, priced there at 7,700, had a rough outing going up against Atlanta last time. Still, he's got over 40 points for a large amount of games prior to that. But 7,700 is a tough spot. Lowry offers you a nice floor, but his ceiling at 7,500 isn't huge. I don't have a whole lot of interest in a lot of these guys. Even Norman Powell is a guy that you probably want to play on sites where he's priced lower. I think he still has some upside, but at 6,300 over on DK, not a spot where I want to look at him. So I don't know. I really don't know if I'll end up playing anyone on Toronto. This game could end up being a blowout. Like, maybe take a shot on Boucher, hoping that he gets a few extra minutes since Gasol's out, priced at 4,300 going up against Cleveland. He'll probably get some run in a blowout, but he's really the only guy that I'm looking at, and it's really not a great play.
Yeah, like I like Serge Ibaka on FanDuel. Man, like Siakam at 8,400, he's just so expensive. Like he has upside in any matchup. I just don't know if I pay that price tag for him. I still think Kyle Lowry's a guy you could play in cash games. I think he's pretty safe at 7,500. Especially in this matchup here going up against Cleveland. If this game ends up staying close, I do think like he has some really strong tournament appeal. I think Norman Powell is another guy that you could potentially look at here in tournaments. I just wish he was a little bit cheaper. Ugh, the price.
Yeah, everyone's just priced about where they should be.
Yep. No, I agree with that. Yeah, and then on the Cleveland side of things, obviously, like if this game stays close, Love, Nance, Thompson, Sexton, one of these guys are probably, if not two of these guys, having solid games.
Yeah, no, Sexton priced about where he should be at 6,900, but Love down to 7,200. I know they had two rough outings going up against New Orleans, going up against Detroit. That Detroit game, I believe, if I remember correctly, was first of all that was a back-to-back, so that's why he got his minutes limited going up against New Orleans, and it was a little bit of a blowout. And the Detroit game was a bit of a blowout. He shot terrible in the New Orleans game. That's why he only ended up with 24 points. He went 4 for 15 from the field. This is not a great matchup, but it's still Kevin Love. He can go for 50. He's probably going to end up playing 35 minutes if this game ends up staying close here. So 7,200, the price decrease that he's gotten over the last few games is causing him to be way, way too low. Outside of him, like I said, Sexton's priced where he should be, 6,900. You're not getting a ton of upside. The floor isn't great. There are other good plays on this slate here. Nance, he's going to get 25 minutes. Obviously, he has upside given what he did versus New Orleans, but I don't know if I'm going to end up going with him. He has been on a nice little run recently, but I don't know if that's going to continue. I have no problem with taking a shot on him in tournaments, but he's not a guy that really stands off the page. Thompson's clearly getting limited at around mid-20s minutes recently, so not a spot that I'm going to go with him against Toronto. Garland, I know he sat out the last game, 5,500. Keeps getting priced the same, has a decent amount of usage, but just hasn't been putting up good games recently. I think this one is pretty much just Love for me, and that's it, because I'm not going with Osman either.
Yeah, like Sexton continues to have a really strong usage rate, which is kind of appealing in this game, but, the matchup is not anything to be excited about. Larry Nance Jr. coming off the bench, his usage has been over 20% in 3 straight games now. And we've kind of seen the fantasy production match that. I'm not too excited here, just in general on the Cleveland side of things. But I will say I don't mind if you're playing 1 or 2 Toronto guys, I don't mind playing like a Kevin Love, a Sexton, a Larry Nance Jr. Garland is kind of pricey in this matchup. And, Thompson, his minutes are just all over the place. So I hate that. And then Kevin Porter Jr. is back. He played 26 minutes the other night. He's only 4K. He's a large field tournament dart in this game because it was a back-to-back, and they ran him out there for 26 minutes on the back-to-back after being out almost 3 weeks. So he's another guy that if you want to throw a tournament dart at, Kevin Porter Jr. is very much in play here.
Yeah, I like that call.
Philly at Atlanta. 228 total here. Philly favored by 7.5 in this game. Horford is questionable. Richardson's out. And then on the Atlanta side, Bembre is doubtful. Fernando is doubtful. And Len is out. Let's start here with Philly. Good matchup here going up against Atlanta. What do you like here for the 76ers?
I mean, Embiid at 9,300. I know he had a rough outing coming back, and he's obviously got some finger issues, but Embiid at 9,300 going up against Atlanta, in Atlanta, so the game's more likely to stay close. If he gets 35 minutes, then he's just going to smash this price tag. It is a clear mispricing. I know they still is dealing with that finger, but does not matter to me. 9,300 is too cheap going up against Atlanta. Simmons hasn't gotten the price decrease enough. He's sitting there at high nines. Matchup versus Atlanta is good. He could end up going for 50, but he's not a guy that stands out. Harris sitting there at 7K, probably not a guy that I'm going to end up targeting. His usage goes down drastically with Embiid in the lineup. So if Horford ends up missing, like, you can take a shot on it, Harris. You can take a shot on Simmons. You play Embiid regardless. But if Horford ends up missing, like, Milton, Thibault, like, probably not O'Quinn, but Milton and Thibault probably are two guys that you can end up looking at for some salary relief. They're going to end up getting more minutes, slightly more usage to go around, but Embiid's a guy that I'm targeting regardless. Matchup versus Atlanta is just perfect. And Simmons and Harris are kind of contingent on Horford being out.
Yeah, obviously, Embiid, they said that they were going to kind of limit his minutes the other night. He played 26 minutes. Maybe he plays a few extra minutes here. I think that's the only thing that you're necessarily concerned about. But, the upside in this matchup is fantastic. He went for 66 fantasy points the first meeting against this team. Ben Simmons has upside here. He's a guy that I really hate playing in fantasy. It's just he's so hit or miss. Tobias, if Horford's out, I don't mind that. But you mentioned Shake Milton. Shake Milton continuing to start here for Josh Richardson, 23, 25, 26 minutes in the last 3 games. He's pretty cheap still. I have no issues rolling him out there. Thibault went to the bench the other night and just kind of lost his production in minutes, so probably won't go there, but could play a little bit more if Horford sits like you mentioned. The Atlanta side of things, man, Trae Young really disappointed me the other night. I played a ton of him against Toronto. I'm going right back to the well here. The usage is just absolutely insane for Trae Young right now, and he's producing at a very high clip and just had a bad game the other night.
Yeah, well, even with his bad game the other night, he's still averaging over 60 in his last 4. 2 70-point games, 9.9K. It's too cheap. It doesn't matter the matchup. I know that Philly's a very tough matchup for every position, but Trae Young is just a guy that can go for 60 no matter what the matchup is. And 9.9K is too cheap for him. It's a tough matchup for John Collins, but if he ends up staying out of foul trouble, he crushes. If he ends up getting into foul trouble, he's only going to play mid-20s minutes. It's kind of how it's been recently. He's had 5 or more fouls in 5 of the last 6 or 6 of the last 7. So it's kind of a worry, but if he's in the game, he's going to eat up a bunch of usage. Outside of them, like Herter, playing a boatload of minutes, like taking some shots, 5,300. There's definitely some upside on him, but it's a tough matchup going up against Philly. Not a guy I'm looking into. Hunter, Reddish, Teague, not guys that I really have any interest in for the Atlanta team.
Sorry, I can hear my son crying, and I'm like, oh, it's been one of those days. Yeah, like Herter, like ever since Teague has kind of come, he's just kind of lost to like point guard minutes, and like we've saw the production just kind of slip a little bit. But in any matchup, if he shoots the ball well from the 3-point line, she took 9, 7, 3, 6, 9 in the last 5 games, 3-pointer attempts. Like all he needs is just one night to shoot the ball well, and he's a guy that could definitely pay off his price. Cam Reddish, Hunter, these guys are going to get there from time to time. I have no issues playing either one of these guys, taking shots, especially with Bembre out. Fernando did not play the other night either. As far as Atlanta, as far as the big guys go, I think Damian Jones, if you want to take a tournament flyer at 3,600, he played 22 minutes the other night against Toronto. He's probably going to have to end up playing, a solid amount of minutes here again, just because Fernando's doubtful and Len is out.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like outside of when Collins or Young are out, like I just don't really have any interest in anyone.
Yeah, I completely understand that. That's for sure. Life today is kind of a lot. It forces us to always be on, but every now and then it's important to just stop, crack open a Mountain Cold Coors Light and chill. So when you choose to turn off, choose the one beer that's made to chill. Coors Light, Mountain Cold refreshment made to chill. What do you do when you need a moment to chill? How do you like to hit the reset button to get what's ready for next. Get ready for what's next. My favorite way to chill is simple. I just crack open an ice cold Coors Light. The mountains on the bottles and cans turn blue even when your beer is cold. That way you always know when it's time to chill. When you need to hit the reset, just open up Coors Light. It's a mountain cold refreshment is made to chill. Coors Light is brewed with a 3-step cold process, cold lager, cold filtered and cold packaged, so it's actually made to chill. The mountains on Coors Light. Cold activated bottles and cans turn blue when chilled to perfection. Born in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado in 1978, Coors Light is refreshing, crisp, and only 102 calories. I love me some Coors Light. I like Coors. I like Coors Light. Coors Light is, always one of my go-tos when I'm out drinking, watching some games. So, of course, if you're over 21, you're watching some hoops, watching some football, make sure you're checking out Coors Light. It's just so refreshing. That's why I like Coors Light, and that's when I choose when I need a moment to chill. So when it's time to reset, reach for that beer that's made to chill. Remember, celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Golden State at Boston. No total in this game. We'll have to kind of wait on some injury news here for Boston. Looney's out again. Cantor's out again, but Jason Tatum is questionable. This seems like a spot. I know he's dealing with a groin injury, but why would he play in this game, in my opinion? What do you like here for Golden State?
I mean, D'Angelo has 50-plus in 3 out of the last 4. 4 out of the last 5. If games stay close, he's playing a boatload of minutes. He's kind of a guy that I'll end up playing anytime that the game – I'm stacking if I have D-Russ. That. It's just that simple. The game turns into a blowout. He's not going to get there, but if the game stays close, we know he's going to put up 20-plus shots in every single game where he ends up playing enough minutes. He's 8K, absolutely has some upside, has 60-point upside in a given matchup here. He's the main guy I'm going with. Draymond had a great game last game. He's been playing mid-30s recently. 5'9". I had no problem with playing him in this spot. He's a GPP flyer. I'm not using him for cash, but in GPP, he's absolutely fine. Burks is another guy that we always talk about. Has not been great recently, but still, any given matchup, he can end up throwing up 20-plus shots here. He gets a boatload of usage. No problem with Burks. I'm probably not going with Glenn Robinson. Probably not going with Damian Lee. I know that Marquise Crisp has been getting some minutes recently and doing all right, but not a guy that I want to trust. To me, it's Russell and Scream in the spot.
That's really it for me, too. Draymond and Russell, really the only 2 guys that I remotely even trust in this spot. Burks, if he was playing the minutes, I would have interest. But he's just not getting the minutes. Glenn Robinson's getting the minutes. He's gone for over 30 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. He's 4,800. He's a guy that you could potentially look at depending on how some of the injury news falls today and how value opens up. I think he's definitely worth looking at. On the Boston side of things, it's all going to depend on Tatum. Again, I don't really see a reason to rush him back in this matchup. They should be able to beat Golden State without him and Cantor. Daniel Tice had a good game last time out. It's 3 straight games with Cantor out that Tice has played over 30 minutes. It's so tough to pay the price tag on DraftKings. It was a solid game the other night, but it wasn't a lock and load spot. But I still think he's in play over on Fanduel at 5,200.
Yeah, on Fanduel he's fine, but yeah, his price tag on DK 6,100. At this price tag, he hasn't gone over 5x in any of the last 10 games. Even games where he's getting over 30 minutes, he has a little bit of upside, but not much. He's a guy that I'm avoiding. If Tatum's out, then same thing as always. It's a perfect matchup. Golden State's terrible defensively. If this game stays close, Kemba, Hayward, Brown, all guys that can go off. Kemba being my favorite of the bunch. I know he had a little bit of a rough game going up against Miami, but I only shot 5 from 19 from the field. Still put up close to 20 shots. Still put up 13 shots from behind the arc. He just shot terribly that game. It was the right play. Didn't end well. Only $100 price increase for a much, much better matchup going up against Golden State. Again, this is entirely contingent on the Tatum news. I have no problem playing any one of these guys if Tatum does play, but if Tatum's out, they become good plays instead of just decent tournament shots. Hayward, 7.5. If Tatum's out, the usage will be there. He doesn't offer a ton of upside, but he offers a little bit of upside at his price. Same thing with Brown. Like, you're not getting a ton of upside. You're not getting a great floor with either him or Hayward, but you are getting some upside if Tatum's out. Walker's the guy that you're getting a big ceiling. He's by far my favorite play of the bunch. Again, not going with Tice, probably not going with Marcus Smart. So really, if Tatum's out, Kemba's my guy, and I have no problem with playing Hayward or Brown in tournaments.
All right, moving on. We got Utah at Denver, 215.5 total here. Denver favored by 1.5 in this game. We'll have to see for Utah as far as injury news goes, back-to-back for them. Denver, Millsap, Murray, and Plumlee are all still out. I was reading a report before we got started that Donovan Mitchell was running back and forth to the bathroom during the game on Wednesday night. So, what do you like here for Utah?
I mean, let's be honest. That's happened to all of us at one point or another. He probably had some good barbecue down in San Antonio. I'll occasionally do it too. But, yeah, Gobert, Mitchell, like, they're priced fine. Gobert hasn't been doing great recently. It's obviously not a good matchup going up against Denver. Gobert, like, had a rough game versus Houston. It's just that simple. Did not do much on the offensive end. It was a weird situation where they had, who was it? PJ Tucker on him. Like, Gobert, 8.1K, even up against Denver, has the ability to go for 50. But Mitchell, he's been playing well recently, but just put up 50 versus Houston, 7,200, offers a good amount of upside. Conley still getting the same exact role. Got upgraded to 25 minutes the other night. I don't know what's going on in the game tonight. It was still going on when we started this podcast, but Conley, even at 4,100, offers a little bit of upside. Maybe he gets a boost in minutes today, but probably not on a second end of a back-to-back. Ingles at his price tag, not offering a ton of upside. I really like this. Is a tough matchup going up against Denver. In Denver on the second end of a back-to-back. We've talked about it before. It's one of the toughest matchups you can have, and it's still a decent flight going from San Antonio to Denver. I really don't have a whole lot of interest in anyone in this game. Like, maybe Bogdanovich, but just really not anyone.
It's the toughest back-to-back in the NBA, and like every player, everybody that I've ever said talked about back-to-backs has said Denver is the toughest back-to-back in NBA. So,
I mean, Utah is played at 3,000 elevation, 3,500 elevation, so it's not as tough on them, but still not an easy back-to-back.
Well, like they played in San Antonio on Wednesday and they fly into Denver, so like it's still not the easiest back-to-back in the world either.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm kind of with you on Utah. I really don't love Utah here. Nothing really standing out unless we get news like Mike Conley is going to be, out on the second end of the back-to-back. I don't think that Mike Conley's played a back-to-back since coming back, so we'll kind of have to see. Because if Mike Conley's out, I like Jingles. Joe Ingles, when Conley's out, Ingles gets to play backup point guard minutes. He gets to play some point guard just in general. So if Conley were to sit in this game after playing 21 minutes on Wednesday, I think Jingles is the guy you could look at here.
I mean, but before Conley, like they got Clarkson around the same time they got Conley, right? Or Conley back, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we don't really know. It might hurt Jingles a little bit, but it might give an upgrade to Clarkson's minutes. And Jingles is 4.9K. Like at his current production, it's not great, but without Conley in there, gets an uptick in minutes in all likelihood and gets an uptick in production. So something to look out for is the fact that, like, I haven't looked into it if Clarkson eats into his minutes, but Joe is still a good play if Conley does sit on the second end of a back-to-back.
Yeah, and Clarkson coming off of one of his best games since joining Utah on Wednesday. He had a really solid game. So that could definitely, honestly, it could be really interesting to see how that kind of plays out. So we'll be watching the news for that one. Denver side of things here, even on the Denver side, nothing really off the page standing out to me. Jokic is 10-1 against Utah. Probably won't end up going there for him. Jeremiah Grant, 6,400. I think he's okay. He's a guy that's gone over 30 fantasy points in 5 straight games now that Millsap's been out. So I don't mind Grant, really.
Yeah, Grant's a all right play, but the guy I'm really looking at is Barton. I know he's been just not great recently. Got into some foul trouble in the Houston game, if I remember correctly. Up against Memphis, went 3 for 10 from the field. Up against New Orleans, went 4 for 14 from the field. Up against Houston, went 3 for 14 from the field. Like, he's playing the minutes in every single game that stays close. They don't have a whole lot of depth. He's 6K now, where he was 7,800 not too long ago. We know that he's going to play the minutes. We know that he's going to have a decent usage. I really like Will Barton in the spot for tournaments. It's not an easy matchup, but I don't think that matters for him a ton. Like, in tough matchups, he can absolutely do well, and I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up taking 15-plus shots in this spot. 6K is too cheap of a price tag, even in a tough matchup, which really doesn't matter for him too much, as I said. I really like Barton. Michael Porter Jr., you can take a shot on tournaments. Had a rough shooting night going up against Memphis. 5.7K. He can still, even in limited minutes, we've seen him go for close to 40 in high 20s minutes. Maybe he gets a few extra minutes in this one. I don't mind Michael Porter Jr. at all at 5,700, and I really like Will Barton. Grant's fine. It's just based on production. It's not a good matchup. There's no other reason other than the fact that he's been close to 40. And Joker at 10K, really tough matchup. Not a great spot for him. 10K. There's boatloads of other guys I'd rather go with at slightly cheaper. So Barton is a really good play in this spot.
Yeah, so Michael Porter Jr., I like him. I just like him more on FanDuel. I think he's, cheap enough over on FanDuel at 4,900 that, the upside, I feel like at that price is a little bit better than the upside over there on DraftKings. So if you're playing Michael Porter Jr., I'd probably end up playing him more on like a FanDuel. That's kind of it for that one. Let's move on to the last one here. We got the Kings at the Clippers in LA. No total in this game yet. Sacramento on the second end of back-to-back. We're going to mark Bagley and Holmes. Bagley questionable and Holmes doubtful. And then on the Clipper side, Beverly and Paul George are both probable. Grant, let's start here, with the Sacramento side. We have Fox, who 37 minutes the other night, put up 46 fantasy points against Minnesota. That was a pretty fast-paced game. It's a tougher matchup here, but this is, the cheapest price tag we've seen from him since the middle of the month. And like Buddy Hield, your buddy Hyde, he took 24 shots against Minnesota the other night. He took 14 3-pointers in that game. What do you like here for Sacramento?
I mean, Bogdanovich, I believe he's still getting the start. He's sitting here at 4,700. It's halftime in the game as we're recording this, and he's already got 21. Price decrease, I know it's the second end of the back-to-back, but I don't think that's really going to affect him too much. Bogdanovich, by the way, I have no idea who's at my door. Bogdanovich is too cheap here. Fox, even in a tough matchup versus the Clippers, is too cheap. Wait and see if we get news on whether Buddy's going to be coming off the bench. But Buddy, not a great play. Fox is too cheap. Bogdanovich is too cheap. Bielitsa is probably still too cheap. Like, the price tags on these guys, I know it's a very tough matchup versus the Clippers when they're at full health. It looks like everyone's going to play. But Bogdanovich, Bielitsa, and Fox are all too cheap. I like all of them in this spot. Even though it's not a good matchup, all of them have a massive ceiling for the price tag. You think Bogdanovich is going to be chalked today?
I don't know if it'll necessarily be chalked just because of the matchup.
Yeah, but he
is cheap. Very cheap.
Yeah, I don't know. Wait on news to see if he gets a start. But he's going to play the minutes. 4,800 is too cheap.
Yeah, man, if Bogdanovich starts and Buddy Hield comes off the bench again, just the usage for Buddy Hield off the bench and, Bogdanovich getting those starter minutes, obviously they both become interesting, but Buddy Hield shooting the ball terribly on Wednesday right now at halftime. But, Bogdanovich, if he's going to start, man, like he is really cheap and his price continues to go down. Solid fantasy games and his price goes down.
Yeah, don't understand it.
Yeah, I like Bielitsa a lot on Wednesday, and he's not doing anything either. Like, my biggest issue with the Kings is they just play so many people so many minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, they only played Buddy 10 minutes in the first half so far. The game might be a lot. Who knows? They might not play that many minutes tonight. It's going to be interesting, but yeah.
All right, let's talk about the other side of this game. The Clippers side, Paul George coming back here. He's 8,200. Patrick Beverley coming back here. He's 4,900. We'll kind of have to see if like Patrick Beverley gets a minute restriction at all because his was a groin injury. Paul George was a hamstring injury. And he's missed I think he was 8 or 9 minutes. And, they're already saying it's unclear if Paul George is going to have a minutes restriction or not. What are you looking at here for the Clippers?
Yeah, if we don't hear I don't want to play 10-8 with Beverly, George, Harrell, Lou, all playing. I don't want to pay 10-8 for Kawhi. George, I don't know about his minutes, even with his minutes being normal. 8.2K, you're not getting a ton of upside at that price tag. Beverly, if there's not going to be a minutes restriction, he's one of the few guys where I could see a decent amount of upside. I just don't know about the minutes restriction. 4.9K is a little bit too cheap for him. He might offer some upside, but again, we're not going to know about the minutes restriction. Maybe you can swap stuff around since the last game of the night and you have the Utah and Denver game too. But as of right now, unless we get news at the beginning of the day, we're not going to know until that game starts about his potential minutes. And so it's not really worth taking a chance. Harrell, Lou Will, both of them priced where they should be. Lou Will has a bit more upside than Harrell. I don't mind playing him at all in this spot. Coming off the bench, he's going to eat up all the usage, especially George is going to be on a minutes restriction. He'll get more minutes without both Kawhi and George in there and can just eat up everything. Has not been playing great recently. People will probably be off him. If I'm playing anyone, it's going to be Beverly if we hear that there's not going to be a minutes restriction, or it's going to be Lou Will.
Yeah. Man, if Paul George doesn't have a minute restriction, he's kind of interesting at 8,200, but I don't think I can trust it. I do think he has really solid upside at that price point if he doesn't have a minutes restriction, but if all these guys play and everybody's healthy and everything's good, I just don't see anything that's jumping off the board price-wise. I don't mind the Lou Williams call. I don't mind Harrell, but these guys go back to that bench role and, they go back to that 26 to 28 minute role.
Yeah.
All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we're going to get out of here. Last podcast of the week for both of us. We got Kyle Murray and Britt Devine making his morning grind debut. He's hosting for me on Friday. Appreciate Britt filling in. Traveling to Nashville, so appreciate him doing that. And that was all to buy time for me to pull up my sheets. Favorite play, under 5X to 7K. Who do you got, Grant?
Bogdanovich.
Yeah. That's not a bad pick, Grant.
No, it's not.
I was struggling with this one. I struggled to do this one before we got started. Oh man, I don't know. Maybe Clarkson gets another solid run and Conley loses minutes. I'm just going to kind of go out on a limb here and say, Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah.
Over 8K to under 5X. Who's your bust today?
I guess the obvious one is Paul George, but I'm just going to go with Kawhi.
I thought you were going to take my guy.
Is it the guy you always take?
It's Joker. I talked him up the other day.
Yeah.
I did.
I know. I was surprised. I was on the podcast with you.
I know. I even I liked him on the Grinders Live later in the day, and I talked him up, and he didn't 5X. I think that's
Who is this man doing a podcast with me?
That's right. Who'd that be? Favorite 6X play. Who do you got?
I had someone, Barton. Max, that should probably be my Let's Get Weird play, shouldn't it?
I don't know if it'll be that weird. Maybe.
Yeah.
Favorite 6x play. There was like 3 people, and I usually write them down, but I did not write them down today. Give me D'Angelo Russell. Your Let's Get Weird GPP play. Who do you got?
Washington's not going to be heavily owned, is he?
I don't think so. He's not typically heavy owned.
He's almost never heavy owned, but there's a spot. PJ Washington.
All right. I'm going to go with Kevin Porter Jr. I don't expect him to be popular at all. So I'm going to take Kevin Porter Jr. and take a flyer on him. Game selection question. Anything standing out to you, Grant?
I didn't even look that much, honestly. Same thing I always say. Probably the fantasy draft pick and roll. I think it's $1,500 today, $25 buy-in. No rake.
Yeah. Another thing that you like to do, if you haven't checked it out, Super Draft, you can switch it up over there. And
also Yahoo's been overlaying a decent amount lately. Look, if you're looking for less rake, fantasy draft and then Yahoo, their $8 baller generally doesn't fill all the way most days.
All right, I went high dollar yesterday. I'm going to go back to the low stakes today. $5 high 5 single entry tournament over there on Draftkings. The only thing that I don't like about this tournament today is it only pays 19%, but the payout structure is really strong for the top 10. Like 2K, 1K, 750, 500, 350. The top 5 spots, I really like that payout structure. So I like this one over there today. Min cash is 2x. Attack it more as a larger field tournament today, in my opinion, because it's kind of top heavy. So that was one of the ones I was, looking at before we got started here. Went high dollar yesterday. Wanted to go back towards the bottom, lower bankroll guys for this one. Grant, over under, favorite over under. What do you got?
I'm probably going the under. Actually, no, I'm going the over in the Washington-Charlotte game. They just keep going over and set 227.5 right now.
I'm actually going to go with you. I don't hardly ever do that, but I got my streak. I tweeted it out. I didn't know which one I was going to take. My lock bet on sharp side yesterday. But I tweeted it out. It was Memphis -3. I felt like that was ridiculous. It ended up -2.5. Like, that's one of those times I wish Florida had sports betting. But I'm going to go ahead. Like, I'm locking this in right now. I'm taking the over of 227.5 for this game because I'm right there with you. Locking it in, getting my lock bet in, and I think this game will climb throughout the day. So I'm getting it in early. That's going to wrap it up here for the Thursday podcast. Like I said, Britt Devine, Kyle Murray on Friday. Appreciate you guys listening. Enjoy the big game this weekend. We'll be back Monday talking some more hoops. Well, I'll be back Monday. The podcast will be here tomorrow. So enjoy, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.
Take it.